You know how it is in the tech world. It's always about the next big thing, right? New software comes out, and just as fast, it's forgotten. But every once in a while, some technologies, they just refuse to fade away. Today, we're talking about one of the great survivors, a piece of software that has stuck around for decades, completely against all odds.
Okay, so let's just frame this up. Over here, you've got the modern gods of data. I'm talking about the massive, super powerful cloud platforms, your SQL servers, your Oracles, the stuff that runs, basically the entire corporate world. And then, over here, all by itself, the survivor, Microsoft Access. So the question is, how did this humble desktop database from a totally different era manage to hold its ground? That's the story we're going to unpack.
To really get how Access survived, we've got to rewind the clock a bit, back to the early 2010s. The entire tech world was going through this massive earthquake. The old desktop era was on its way out, and the age of the cloud was just beginning. And man, this change happened fast, like incredibly fast. By 2010, the cloud wasn't some weird experiment anymore. It was totally mainstream. Fast forward to 2015, and these huge enterprise databases were the undisputed kings of the hill. And by 2020, big data wasn't just a buzzword, it was the standard. The entire playbook for managing data had been completely rewritten. So in this brave new world, a desktop tool like Microsoft Access, which used to be the Swiss Army knife for so many businesses, well, it just wasn't the focus anymore. It was seen as a relic, a tool from a past generation that had been totally lapped by these new cloud-based giants. But, and this is where the story gets really interesting, Access didn't just vanish. It found a new way to survive, in a place called the long tail. So what the heck is the long tail? Well, think about it like this. You have a few blockbuster movies that make billions, right? But then you have this massive, almost endless library of indie films and older movies that each just get a few streams. That huge collection of niche stuff, that's the long tail. And for software, it's the same idea. It's about tools that serve very specific, smaller scale needs, way outside of the big mainstream spotlight.
So how exactly did Access manage to hang on? Well, there were a few key reasons. For one, it was still bundled with Microsoft Office, which meant it was already sitting on millions and millions of computers. Big one. Plus, so many businesses were running these critical, custom-built Access apps, these legacy systems that were just way too complicated or expensive to ever replace. It became this quiet backbone for all the parts of the economy the cloud revolution hadn't quite gotten to yet.
And really, that brings us to the simplest, but maybe the most powerful reason of all. For millions of people out there, folks managing their small business inventory, their customer lists, their local club's membership, Access just worked. It was familiar, they already owned it, and it did the job. Was there a fancier way to do it? Sure, but they didn't need it. It was simply good enough. So when you get right down to it, the story of Access isn't really about Microsoft's corporate strategy. It's about people. It's about a huge, loyal community of users who just flat out refuse to let it go. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? A company can stop advertising a product. They can move all their developers to something new. They can even call it obsolete. But a piece of software isn't really dead until the very last person stops using it. And that's the punchline for the whole story of Access. The users, they just stayed. Millions of them. They kept building their little databases, maintaining them, and relying on them, creating this silent, massive user base that the rest of the tech world had pretty much forgotten existed. I mean, this chart just shows the irony perfectly. You can see Microsoft's focus shifted big time to newer things, like Power Apps and, of course, the ever-important SQL Server. And where's Access? Way down at the bottom of the priority list. But here's the thing. That corporate neglect didn't even matter. The user community had already made up its mind. Access wasn't going anywhere. So, when you step back and look at the whole picture, what's the big takeaway here? It's a fantastic lesson in how technology really lives and dies, not in some corporate boardroom, but in the hands of the people who actually use it. It makes you ask a really interesting question, doesn't it? What do you do with a tool that became essential, not because it was the newest or the fastest or the most powerful, but just because it was trusted, it was familiar, and it was good enough for the job people needed it to do? The story of Microsoft Access is really one of quiet, stubborn persistence. It's proof that sometimes user loyalty can be a much more powerful force than corporate strategy. While the rest of the tech world was racing toward the next big thing, Access just remained. A true people's database that simply refused to be forgotten. It's still here,